Don't you know the meaning of patience? Essentially, I must say you lack endurance. How much do you think I've been putting up with having a lazy wife? That's exactly my line. Hey, don't argue back every time. Don't blame me. It's over. I've reached my limit of patience. I'm sick of your lack of perseverance. If you can't stand it anymore, then leave. Let's get divorced. He threw the divorce papers on the dirty table. So, there was really no need to fight. With just one piece of paper, I can be free from this life. My name is Courtney. It has been a year since I married Jeff. The happy married life I dreamed of before marriage was then falling apart. What's for dinner tonight? My husband came home without a greeting, silently unlocked the door, and entered the living room with his presumptuous, heavy footsteps. He threw his roughly handled bag on the sofa and heavily sat down. Then, he took off his socks and stuffed them into the gap of the sofa. Nonsense. What in the world is this strange habit? It would make the sofa smell. Hey, I'm asking what's for dinner. Those socks. Huh? Don't stuff your socks in the gap. Oh, right. But if it bothers you, you can clean it up yourself, right? I got angry every time with him. He was good at increasing my stress. So, what's for dinner? Oh, and stop scattering things on the floor. I always tell you that. My husband pointed at a single receipt on the floor. I don't remember dropping it, but when I leaned over to pick it up, my husband sneered. I really don't understand leaving things on the floor. It shows how messy you are. I stopped reaching for it. Can I ask a question? Yeah, what? My husband made an obviously annoyed face. But I didn't care. What's the difference between leaving things on the floor and leaving used socks in the gap of the sofa? What's the difference between the floor and the sofa? Why is it wrong to leave things on the floor but okay for the sofa? It's the same action of leaving things, so why do you say they're different? What? Don't shift the blame to me. I'm not blaming you, just questioning. And according to your philosophy, the person who notices should deal with it. You found the receipt, right? So, why don't you pick it up? That's. Also, it's your turn to cook tonight. Why are you asking me about the dinner menu? Hey, I've been wondering since we got married, are you really Jeff? You said we would share household chores before we got married, didn't you? Did you forget? Or were you abducted by aliens and got replaced? If so, we need to rescue the real Jeff. So, who are you? And who's preparing dinner tonight? All right, I'll prepare it myself. He sighed deeply. Courtney, you've changed. With a look of exasperation, he continued to sigh. Every time he chopped using the knife, he'd sigh. Every time he lit the gas range, he'd sigh. He was really irritated by everything. Hey, where's the small pot? His new strategy, as I ignored his continuous sighs, was to keep asking where everything was. It's in the cabinet under the gas range. Where are the carrots? In the fridge, in the middle of the vegetable compartment. Where are the onions? Next to the carrots. Where's the oil? On the shelf under the gas range, on the right side. And the salt? On top of the gas range, in the seasoning rack, the second one from the right. Hey, can you help me? If you help with my tasks, I'll help you. I don't remember you helping me when it was my turn. If you want help, show some willingness to cooperate first. He looked dissatisfied, and in his anger, what he ended up making was stew with undercooked vegetables. There was neither rice nor bread, just the stew. Furthermore, while I ate from a small plate, Jeff proudly placed a large plate of stew in front of him. His smug expression exuded a trace of spite. Thank you. Let's eat. I said grace for the meal and quickly finished it. I cooked, but if you're not full, make something yourself next time. Haha, okay. I cheerfully moved to the kitchen to start preparing pasta, but the filthiness of the sink dampened my spirits. This is always how he is. Even if he reluctantly cooks, he never cleans up afterward. That burden is always on me. With renewed determination, I quickly finished cooking and ate in front of Jeff. It took me about 10 minutes to cook. Jeff's stew remained untouched. In the silence, after finishing my meal and returning from the bathroom, I saw Jeff picking garlic slices from the plate I had washed. I'm tired of this vulgarity. Before we got married, he was kind and cool. Initially, he was my superior at work and my mentor. When I made a mistake with an order, causing trouble for a client, and was being sternly scolded by my boss, he stood up for me. The moment he boldly protected me in front of everyone watching felt incredibly supportive. Our relationship evolved into romance, leading us to the present. But his casual remarks gradually cooled my feelings. At our wedding after party, a tipsy Jeff became talkative. When did you fall for me? He asked, and I initially wasn't sure which moment he was referring to. There were many charming moments, so I was smitten with him. You thought I was cool when I defended you in front of everyone, right? Actually, that mistake was my fault because I forgot to communicate something important, he revealed, and I felt utterly disillusioned. Following his words, the room fell silent, with everyone giving awkward smiles. The only one laughing heartily was Jeff. A colleague commented that it might be the alcohol talking, but I wasn't convinced. They say one's true feelings emerge when drunk. Just 1 week after the wedding, Jeff's true nature became apparent. He didn't keep his promises. They were all talk, and he stereotypically assigned household chores as a woman's role, revealing the superficial goodness in him had vanished. I thought of divorce as an option, but since it was just a week into our marriage, I was concerned about appearances. I am not inherently weak and have the courage to confront my husband. I wanted to explore the possibility of improving him. However, now, I've given up on that idea. I feel that I should not continue living such a draining life. I was ultimately unable to change my husband. A year into our marriage, I was looking for the right moment to suggest divorce. Then, a turning point came. My brother is coming over today, so please be nice. Why would he say that all of a sudden? I wanted to express my displeasure, but I held back. Having sisters myself, I understand the desire to meet when nearby due to a business trip, and I assume Jeff would feel the same. All right, when is he coming? Probably around 3 p.m. You mean today, in the afternoon? Yes, that's right. Okay, got it. It must mean he's finishing work a bit early. I didn't think much more about the odd feeling I had. However, just after 3 p.m. that day, Jeff appeared at my workplace, looking flustered. Why are you here? Huh? Why? What about your brother? He called to say he couldn't get into the house. Well, that makes sense. If you're here, it means no one is at home. What are you doing here? I told you I was counting on you. Yes, you did, but… Huh? You mean I should leave work early to entertain your brother? What else would it be? I was astonished. This man is hopeless. Wait a minute. Whose brother is he again? Your brother, right? Why should I have to leave work early to take care of my brother-in-law? That's ridiculous. Seriously. But, no bits. I don't want to hear excuses. You take care of your brother. It's not my responsibility. Fine. I've had enough. Jeff left in a fury. I was exhausted. Yet, the thought that this might be a step toward divorce made me feel excited. Who can stay late tonight? Before I knew it, I was the first to raise my hand. I finished work and left the company after 9 p.m. Since Jeff asked me to, I hurriedly bought some drinks and snacks at the supermarket and went home. I'm home. As I opened the door to our house, a strong smell of alcohol hit me. It seemed they both had been drinking a lot. I've had concerns about my brother-in-law's misconduct ever since we got married. He started visiting more frequently after we got married. We lost our parents when we were young. Well, somehow. This house reminds me of our hometown. It feels warm. This is a line my brother-in-law often says when drunk. Thinking our home is like his childhood home, he believes it's acceptable to make a mess and spill drinks while drunk, resulting in a huge cleaning effort after his visits. And Jeff has never once helped with this. I felt angry when various places like the curtains, living room, bathroom, and even the blanket were soiled. The cleaning was always my task. Despite this, the sight of the two brothers enjoying their time together evokes a sense of brotherly bond forged over many years. That's why I've repeatedly restrained my anger. I cautiously opened the living room door, only to be greeted by a scene of chaos. Beer cans scattered across the floor, large stains from spilled liquids, fragments of chips, and greasy fingerprints on the television, all contributing to my overwhelming sense of fatigue. Oh, the foolish wife has returned. Exactly. Brother, please tell her more. Calm down. Don't worry, Jeff. I'm here now, so there won't be any more nonsense from your wife. Is this some kind of joke? Courtney, I'll teach you how to be a proper wife, so be grateful. I'm sorry, but I'll have to decline. Don't resist. Come sit here. Looking towards the sofa where my brother-in-law was pointing, I noticed 2 pairs of socks stuffed into the gap. So this is the true bond of brothers. As Jeff said, you are indeed a presumptuous wife. We need to correct this together. I'll be living here from now on, so listen carefully, Courtney. Do you understand? What do you mean, living here? This is our family home. It's only natural for the sons to live here. Are you serious? It seemed incredulous, but he was earnest. He was saying this is unequivocally his house, which my husband simply moved into. This house was passed down to me by my parents. It's not your family home. Haha. Young people these days. Listen, by marrying Jeff, you took our family name. Don't you understand the significance of that? From the moment you married into this house, it became our family's home. I couldn't help but laugh at that statement. My laughter only infuriated my brother-in-law further. What's with that reaction? I'm the eldest brother. You should obey me. You plan to stay in this house? I strongly object. What? You. Insolent. Insolent? Do you even understand what that means? And why are you making a scene in someone else's house during the day? What about your job? I quit my job to support my brother. Oh, I see. So you were fired for incompetence, then? It's no surprise that someone like you, who has never shown any kindness even in a relationship, wouldn't understand. I get it now. What did you say? That's discriminatory. I could sue for defamation. Go ahead, be my guest. I didn't say that about everyone, just to be clear. I know people who have little to no experience with romance, but they enjoy their lives. They simply aren't interested. Yet they could find a partner anytime they want because they have attractive personalities. But you constantly complain about women. You want a girlfriend, but your personality gets in the way. It's truly hilarious. Who would want to learn how to be a wife from someone like you? Haha, your lack of self-awareness is really amusing. What? Oh no. A man in his 40s started to cry. What a hassle. Stop it. Your personality is the worst. So what? Even if that's true, what's it to you? I don't think I'm a good person. Don't you know the meaning of patience? Essentially, I must say you lack endurance. How much do you think I've been putting up with having a lazy wife? That's exactly my line. Hey, don't argue back every time. Don't blame me. It's over. I've reached my limit of patience. I'm sick of your lack of perseverance. If you can't stand it anymore, then leave. Let's get divorced. He threw the divorce papers on the dirty table. So, there was really no need to fight. With just one piece of paper, I can be free from this life. My husband wanted a divorce, and I accepted it. This would resolve everything. Feeling this, the tension in my body eased. What are you dawdling for? Sign it now. Looking at me, my husband wore a smug smile. What a self-centered person he is. Did he think everything would go his way? Humph, serve you right. Enough with the noise. They were crying just a moment ago, but after that the brothers were all smug. I understand. I'll sign now. And so, I moved the pen. I decided to ignore a certain section that caught my eye for now. A divorced woman, huh? Society can be harsh, especially since it's only been a year since the marriage. How impatient can a woman be? Yes, I've finished signing. I'll take this to the evening reception. And I did just that, marking the end of my marriage to Jeff. Days later, returning home, I found my ex-husband and his brother drinking in the living room. Why are you still here? Get out. What? You're the one who should not come here. This is trespassing. No, this is my house. You're the one squatting. My ex-brother-in-law remains silent, probably not wanting to be made to cry by me again. There's no reason for us to leave. Well then, please come this way. As I shouted, a person appeared in the living room, changing my ex-husband's expression instantly. What? Mr. Stewart, the general manager? Why are you here? I've heard everything. Now, take only what you need and leave. Yes, understood. Mr. Stewart was a significant figure who witnessed our marriage. He was our boss and directly above my ex-husband. As long as he worked at that company, defying Mr. Stewart was impossible, and my ex-husband hurriedly packed the bare minimum. Led by Mr. Stewart, he and his brother left the house silently. After changing the locks, I felt relieved but dizzy at the sight of the messy room. This was the result of my mistake in choosing him. I vowed not to make the same mistake again and got to work cleaning. A week later, Mr. Stewart informed me that my ex-husband and his brother had found another place to live. I then sent an official notice to their rental and workplace. The notice was about my ex-husband's infidelity. While filling out the divorce application, I noticed something in the guarantor section. A temporary employee from my husband's department was listed there. Why would a temp, with whom we had only professional contact, be a guarantor? The reason was clear. It was evidence of an inappropriate relationship. It was doubtful that evidence could be obtained after the divorce. But the temp brazenly shared intimate details of her relationship with my ex-husband on her social media. This bold action provided proof that an inappropriate relationship existed during our marriage, preparing me for this day. As a result, I received a substantial sum in compensation. $20,000 from my ex-husband's side and $5,000 from the temp. The amount far exceeded my expectations. One day, an important meeting was scheduled in the company's conference room. Mr. Stewart, the lawyer, myself, and of course, my ex-husband and the temp were present. The temp, like a drama heroine, made an emotional statement first. Jeff is not to blame. It's all on me. I fell for Jeff on my own. That's all. Let's stick to the main point. Are you willing to make the compensation payment? Compensation. Can it really settle everything? Yes, my client desires the payment. Her reaction was as expected. It's your cold attitude that drove Jeff away. You're truly heartless. I can't sense any compassion in you. She accused. This exchange was just part of a complex and emotional process that led to the divorce and the payment of compensation. Through this situation, I came to realize anew the complexities of human relationships and that legal resolutions don't necessarily bring peace of mind. Will you make the payment or not? I don't care about the money. Are you going to pay or not? I'll give this trivial amount away. She tossed $5,000 into the air and danced gracefully. I got to see the sight of my ex-husband frantically gathering the money from the ground. Jeff is still kind, even in such a situation. No, that's not it. He couldn't afford to fail in front of Mr. Stewart. He's extremely concerned about how others perceive him. Haha, their future will be interesting to watch. So, do you intend to pay the compensation? My ex-husband remained silent, looking down. If you have no intention to pay, what have I done to deserve this? It's about infidelity. We were doing fine. No, truly self-centered and frightening. Why do we have to divorce? What? I had a feeling, but he truly is a problematic person. I don't think we are divorced. No excuses, please. Just tell me if you have the desire to pay or not. I will pay. But I plan to use that money for another wedding ceremony with Courtney. What? It's ridiculous. To divorce over a mere fling. Do you know how much I've endured for you? Despite that, I love you, accepting all your whims. And yet, why repay kindness with betrayal? Jeff, you're divorced from your wife and with me. Be quiet. I'm talking to my wife, Courtney. Mistresses should know their place. Courtney, we're not divorced, right? No, the divorce proceedings are complete. If that's the case, this is just an argument, right? No, you don't file for divorce over just an argument. You were the one who proposed it. I found out about your affair when I saw the divorce papers. The guarantor section had her name. That's how I knew. It wasn't the affair that led to our separation. It was your unbearable character. Breaking promises, trying to bring your brother into our home without asking, thinking only of yourself. Your character was the real problem. The divorce is final. Now, will you pay the compensation or not? Yes, the brothers are quick to show theirs. I truly loved you. As he cried out, my ex-husband threw the $20,000 on the table and stormed off. Jeff, wait for me. The temp, her hair disheveled, chased after him, waving her hands. What were we witnessing? The surprise was hard to hide. Wow, that was impactful. Sorry, I'll treat you to something next time. I felt both grateful and apologetic for involving my lawyer friend, a college classmate, in this ridiculous exchange. Mr. Stewart, I deeply apologize for any inconvenience caused. Well, you experience new things at any age. I'm grateful for this new experience. It might be a topic of conversation in the office for a while, but don't push yourself too hard. Yes, I'm fine. I love my job. Thank you very much for your support. As planned, the temp left the company after her contract ended. As for my ex-husband, he resigned after a transfer to another region. Eventually, the two of them didn't end up together. According to my lawyer friend, she's on social media chasing after another man, potentially facing another demand for compensation. It's almost like an illness. Having gained freedom through divorce, I was worried I might become emotionally unstable, but I'm perfectly fine. For now, I plan to focus on my work and move forward at my own pace. Upon arriving at the luxurious high-rise apartment, I spoke with the person at the front desk and obtained the keys to the apartment. Using the dedicated high-speed elevator, I headed to my home located at the top of the building. Wow, this is so nice. As the door opened, my sister-in-law burst in ahead of everyone else and exclaimed joyfully, "Well, let's start organizing our belongings." I called out, but no one seemed inclined to help. I had anticipated this, but it still wasn't a nice feeling. After the movers placed the items in their designated spots, I proceeded to unpack alone. I'll take the large room. The daughter-in-law can have the small storage room. That was how my in-laws were allocating rooms, but I ignored them and focused on unpacking. It's really a nice place. I wouldn't mind making this our last home. You're right. I'm glad to see Dad and Mom happy. Ryan and his family exchanged these words with beaming faces. It's like a dream to live in such a wonderful house. My sister-in-law said, overwhelmed with emotion. Perhaps it's time to reveal the truth. Huh? Whose house are you talking about? What? My name is Tiffany Brown. I am 32 years old. I work as a freelance illustrator. Although I used to be a full-time employee at a major publishing company, I chose independence and now primarily accept work from my former employer while also starting my journey as a children's book author. 2 years ago, upon marrying Ryan, we began living together in the apartment I had been residing in. The reason we lived there was because that house was actually my property, and Ryan moved in with me from his rental place. I lost my parents in a traffic accident during my childhood. Afterward, I was raised by my grandparents and bought this apartment when I started working. The funds for purchasing this home came from the compensation and insurance money related to my parents' death. My grandparents, who raised me, saved the money without using it and gave it to me for my future when I graduated from college. The reason I chose that apartment was because my grandparents decided to move into a nursing home. Wanting to spare me the burden of caregiving, they planned to enter the facility together. Respecting their wish, I chose this apartment for its convenient access and proximity to the facility they would be staying at. Although they said there were other uses for the money, it was the best choice for me. About 10 years have passed since I started living here. The 10 years spent with my parents and the other 10 I spent with my grandparents are equally significant to me, and I feel a special attachment to this house. I met Ryan at a friend's wedding after party. He was a colleague of my university friend's soon-to-be spouse. Since many of us happened to be of the same age, we decided to form a group and hang out occasionally. Several couples emerged within this group, and some even led to marriage, including us. Ryan always brightened up the surroundings and was a real mood maker. From our first meeting, I was charmed by him. I was drawn to his bright personality and found him attractive. However, that impression was superficial, and soon after marriage, I got to see his other side. While Ryan was a true gentleman when we were still dating, it became clear post-marriage that he was not the type to spoil a woman who was already his. In fact, he seemed to be the type who took advantage of people once they were in his palm. I'm living at your place. At least pay for the living expenses. Huh, what do you mean by that? If I weren't living here, the expenses would remain the same, right? So just continue paying for everything like you've done so up until now. There shouldn't be any problem with that, right? In fact, my apartment is already paid off, and there are no remaining mortgage debts. However, living here requires maintenance fees and a reserve fund for repairs, not to forget about the taxes. And since I own a car, I'm also paying for the parking space as well. Those are costs you would be paying anyway, whether I'm here or not, right? That's true, but then it shouldn't be a problem for you to continue paying them as you have been, right? This argument might seem logical at first glance, but it's actually not. But Ryan, you're going to be living in this house too, and we agreed to share the living expenses. I'd prefer if we could split them. When I said this, Ryan retorted angrily. You're so greedy. A real money grubber. I never thought you were that kind of a woman. I was stunned by his words and left speechless. I thought that we were on equal footing in our future life together as a couple. I thought that we would naturally bear the expenses of our shared home together. I'm not saying I won't pay anything. Of course, I'll pay half of what I use. But you're the owner of this house, right? In other words, since this house is my property, I should bear all related expenses. I'll cover the amount related to my expenses. So isn't that arrangement fine? Faced with that, I reluctantly accepted his proposal. At the beginning of our marriage, Ryan did contribute to half of the living expenses, but only up to the amount I requested. The electricity bill was this much this month. That's quite a bit. Aren't you overspending by working from home? I had already quit my job during our dating period and became independent as a freelancer. I work from home most of the time, occasionally going out for meetings or to see friends. It doesn't seem fair. Ryan first expressed his dissatisfaction with the utility bills. What do you mean not fair? I asked. You see, I spend most of my day outside. Why am I obliged to pay for your electricity use while you work at home? He retorted. I was just dumbfounded by his logic and couldn't find words to reply. I only use electricity for a tiny fraction of time from when I get home until I go to sleep, so I shouldn't have to pay half, Ryan argued, and after that, he indeed paid only a minimal amount. He applied the same logic to the gas and water bills. At first, I had no choice but to accept it. Although Ryan's time at home was short, the utility bills obviously increased with his presence. But it was impossible to pinpoint the exact amount of how much he was using. While I did listen to Ryan's complaints, I obliged to his arguments since he was still willing to share living expenses with me. I now realize how foolish that decision was, but at that time, I thought it was for the best. I concluded it was better to accept a little bit of discomfort and have a peaceful marital life, rather than to argue over minor issues early in our marriage. Aside from finances, Ryan remained the cheerful and pleasant person he had always been. Although the issue of money was always a concern, I wasn't financially struggling even without his contributions. I felt it was more important to spend time in peace. However, that happiness gradually became unstable. Over time again? Give me a break, Ryan complained, showing a tendency to come home late. Are you sure you're okay? I think there's a guideline regarding overwork, stating that it's risky to exceed a certain number of hours per month. The Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare recommends not exceeding 45 hours. You don't get it at all. Those numbers are just superficial. A good salesman doesn't only work the hours shown on the time card. Ryan said this with a sneer. Tiffany, you've experienced working all night before deadlines, haven't you? Yes, I have, but that's the reality. Don't be misled by numbers, and look at the actual effort. Having graduated from an art university and working as an illustrator, I honestly didn't understand the details of sales jobs. When he stated it so definitively, I had no choice but to agree. I understand, but please, don't overdo it. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm fine, I won't overdo it. Ryan said this while warmly embracing my shoulder. I tried to find comfort in Ryan's words, believing that trusting him would bring me some peace of mind. However, the betrayals by Ryan gradually accumulated over the years. People can react to sudden pain, but they become numb when it comes to pain inflicted over a certain period of time. Ryan's accumulated betrayals had become a heavy burden, yet I spent my days tolerating it bit by bit. In other words, I was hoping for peaceful days with my eyes closed. Then, all of a sudden, a major change came along. My family will be coming over, is that okay? One morning, Ryan suddenly suggested this. Your father and mother are coming? My sister will be coming too. I had once visited his family's home in the countryside before our marriage. It was a small house in a quiet rural town, showing some signs of wear and tear as time had passed, but his parents lived there together. At that time, his sister was already married and left the house, so I didn't get to meet her. Despite attempts to meet up, she was busy and couldn't come, leaving only a message of greetings. We didn't have a wedding ceremony and only took wedding photos, so that was the first and only time I got to meet Ryan's parents, but I haven't had the chance to meet his sister. Our friends threw us a celebration party, but because of that I hadn't had the chance to meet Ryan's relatives. I myself didn't have a deep bond with my family, so I didn't find it strange. However, Ryan's parents and sister visiting us felt out of the blue. A year had passed since our marriage, so it didn't seem unnatural for them to come over and see how we were doing. Without any suspicion about Ryan's suggestion, I accepted the visit. A week later, as promised, Ryan's family came over. This is your house, Ryan? That's not very spacious. These were their first words upon entering the house. Indeed, it wasn't vast, but what else were they expecting? This house was originally purchased with the intention of living alone. It had 3 rooms, 2 bedrooms, 1 empty room, and a spacious living dining area. The empty room was mainly used as a guest room while the rest were used as a study and a bedroom. When Ryan started living with me, he said he needed space to work from home, so I offered my workspace as his study, and now I work in the living area. The space is sufficient for 2 people and I don't feel any inconvenience. Following Ryan's mother, his sister, whom I was meeting for the first time, entered our home. It's much smaller than I expected. We're going to live here together? It's small, but I'd be happy if you could bear with it. There's a saying, home is where you make it. I can tolerate it for a while. Having a roof over your head is better than nothing. I wondered how long she was intending to stay here. At that moment, Ryan, with an irritated voice, gave an order. Hey, don't just stand there. Hurry up and carry in Dad and Mom's luggage. Yes, sorry. Which luggage? Expecting it to be just short-term stay luggage. Probably a duffel bag. I looked around inside the entrance, but there was nothing. Where do you think you're looking at? It's outside. I rushed to the hallway only to find about 10 cardboard boxes stacked. White cardboard boxes for a visit to their son's house? I struggled to understand but realized I couldn't leave so many boxes in the hallway. Fortunately, none of the cardboard boxes were particularly heavy, and I was able to carry them all into the living room by myself. Since the living and dining areas are combined, there was ample space, and I managed to find a spot to stack them without getting in the way. At that time, Ryan and his family were chatting away. After you finish carrying the luggage, let's have some coffee. Hurry up, everyone is tired. Overwhelmed by the situation, I reacted to Ryan's orders before I could think. Really, what a thoughtless daughter-in-law. I'm worried about the future. I'll use this room. While I was making coffee, Ryan's sister claimed our bedroom as her own. That's fine. I'll sleep in the guest room with mom and dad. I'm happy I get to sleep together with Ryan after such a long time. Nice family time. Ryan and his family seem to enjoy themselves as if I wasn't there. Our house only has a bedroom, guest room, and the room Ryan uses as his office. Where am I supposed to sleep? And how long will this situation last? It seems that people cannot think normally when faced with situations that exceed their common sense. While I was in a daze, everything got settled. With the arrival of the in-laws began an awkward everyday life. When will dinner be ready? I'm sorry, I'm preparing it right now. You're really slow. I wonder how Ryan can tolerate such a wife. Ryan's family spent their days lounging around the house, not helping with anything. They treated me like a servant. At first, I thought I just had to endure it for a few days and played the obedient wife. However, as I overheard conversations between Ryan's family and him, it became clear that this would be a long-term situation. All of a sudden, reality hit me. To put it simply, Ryan's family had fled their hometown. This was because Ryan's sister had returned home after getting a divorce. The reason for the divorce was her infidelity. She had affairs with many people. As a result, everything came to light. She was sued by her ex-husband and the spouses of her lovers, leading to her inability to pay, and thus fled here. Ryan had previously told me that his family owned their home, but that was also a lie. The house they lived in originally belonged to his mother's parents. Ryan's parents, incapable of providing for themselves, moved in with them, and after his mother's parents died, they just stayed there. The actual owner was Ryan's mother's brother, who had repeatedly asked them to leave, but they stayed, using their residency rights as leverage. Although he wanted them to leave, he had his own residence and never forced his sister's family out, despite making requests for them to vacate. However, when Ryan's sister returned home with a huge alimony to pay, the parents suddenly decided to sell the house to raise funds. When his mother's brother found out, he was furious and considered legal action, prompting them to flee with all their belongings to our house. Those belongings were the 10 boxes I struggled to carry in that day. That was all they had. I don't know nor care what's inside those boxes, but it seems they don't contain anything of value. Overall, they came to us penniless, and they seemed to plan to depend on us for the foreseeable future. Among that family, only Ryan was different. He was good at studying, graduated from university with a scholarship, and didn't seem to belong to such a family at first glance. He presented himself as a refreshing young man, landed a job at a somewhat reputable company, and then met and married me. I couldn't see through Ryan's or his family's true colors. I have no parents and am all alone. I own my home and have a job. For Ryan, I must have been an ideal target. This was no laughing matter. Now that I had it all figured out, I had no intention of being submissive. I absolutely could not accept being manipulated by such a terrible family. I pondered how to resist and immediately started to take the following day. To do that, I first had to pretend to be obedient on the surface. I must not let Ryan or his family catch on to my plan. I'll let them be off their guard and then seize the opportunity. Just as they appeared out of the blue, I too will strike suddenly. While obliging to the in-laws' demands, about a week later, Ryan's sister made a request. "Lend me some money." She said this while extending her hand. She was very direct when asking for money. I was angry but decided not to rebel for now. I handed over some cash to Ryan's sister. "Is this all? Don't you have more?" It's way too sudden, so I don't have more on hand." "Then, a card will do." "Absolutely not. If I give her the card, there's no telling how it will be used. I can't lend you the card. I'll withdraw some money from the bank tomorrow, so please wait until then." I managed to placate Ryan's sister's unreasonable demand with that promise. "No matter what happens, I have no intention of handing over my card." That night, after Ryan came home, he criticized me for it. "You could have just lent her the card. You're really stingy with money." I was surprised by his criticism, but I had my reasons, so I decided to apologize. "I'm sorry. I was worried that lending her the card might lead to trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "If she used a card under a different name, your parents might have gotten into trouble for unauthorized use." I was too scared to hand it over. Ryan seemed convinced by that explanation. "Then please make a family card for them to use." Okay. I agreed on the surface, but I had no intention of actually making one. About a month later, Ryan asked about the progress of the family card. I had given some money to the in-laws a few times, but perhaps Ryan, tired of the nagging, was eager to get the card. "I'm sorry, but it seems I can't make that card." I said this while feigning disappointment. I hadn't applied for a family card at all and actually felt no regret. "Why not?" "It seems that they are considered as relatives and not as immediate family. It appears that temporary residence isn't sufficient." The in-laws had imposed themselves on my home without permission, and no official procedures for living together were completed. Since they haven't transferred their residency here, it's impossible to get a residence certificate. Is that true? Faced with this fact, Ryan reluctantly seemed to accept it. Then, if we transfer their residency, would that solve it? Yes, since they're going to be here for a long time anyway. Hurry up and get the procedures done. Brazenly, the in-laws demanded that I handle the paperwork, but considering they'll be staying long-term, I feel this house is a bit small for that. That might be true. That might be why you've been hardly coming home recently, Ryan. At that, Ryan frowned. I'm busy with work and stay until late, so I spend nights at a nearby hotel. Work must be tough. How about we move somewhere else? Ryan and his family were taken aback by my suggestion. This house was originally purchased for me to live alone, and while it's still manageable with Ryan, it's indeed cramped with the current number of people. That's true. Please take a look at this. Wouldn't you like to move to a residence like this? Saying that, I presented a brochure for a new apartment in a newly developed subsidy center. It was a high-rise apartment. The brochure showed photos of an apartment located on the highest floor of the building. The spacious interior offered a panoramic view of the cityscape through large windows. How did you manage to get such a magnificent apartment? Feeling cramped in our current home, I made a bold decision. I sold this house and combined the inheritance from my parents with my savings to purchase this new place. I see. While our current home is nice, the new one is even better. Initially skeptical, Ryan and his sister relaxed their expressions when they learned the purchase was complete. You're quite something. My view of you has changed. I feel like now we can finally accept you as a family member. The in-laws also nodded in agreement, smiling. Thus, the discussion about the move went smoothly. A month later, the moving day arrived. While I felt a bit sad to say goodbye to the house I had lived in for so long, it was a step toward a new beginning. After loading the truck with our belongings, we took a taxi to the new residence. Upon arriving at the high-rise apartment and speaking with the front desk attendant, I received the keys to the apartment. Using the dedicated high-speed elevator, we headed to our new home at the top of the building. Wow, this is amazing. As the door opened, Ryan's sister rushed in first, exclaiming with joy, "Let's start organizing our belongings." I called out, but no one seemed inclined to help. I had anticipated this, but it still wasn't a nice feeling. After the movers placed the items in their designated spots, I began unpacking alone. I'll take the large room. Daughter-in-law can have the small storage room. That was how my in-laws were allocating rooms, but I ignored them and focused on unpacking. It's a really nice place. I wouldn't mind making this our last home. You're right. I'm glad to see Dad and Mom happy. Ryan and his family exchanged these words, smiling. It feels like a dream to live in such a wonderful house. Ryan's sister said, overwhelmed with emotion. Perhaps it's time to reveal the truth. Huh? Whose house are you talking about? I asked, feigning surprise. What? This isn't your house. This is the house I purchased to live with my grandparents. But you asked us if we wanted to live in such a house. Ryan's sister protested loudly. Yes, I did ask if you wanted to live here, but that was merely a question of interest, not an offer to live together. Indeed, I said that, but I never proposed living together. I can't imagine living with these people forever. I would like you all to leave immediately. I am the owner of this house. As the landlord, I am asking you to leave, so please comply before this escalates into a problem. Don't be ridiculous. Ryan, his face turning red, stamped his foot in anger. Just be quiet and obey me. This house is for me and my family. If you don't like it, you can leave. Yeah, get out. Exactly. Ryan and his family were pressuring me to leave this house. I used the wall-mounted intercom to call the concierge. Excuse me, there are intruders in my house trying to kick me out. Please come immediately. With those words, an alarm sounded throughout the room. What's going on? So noisy. Stop it right now. The security staff, alerted by the call, arrived promptly in the room. That's the benefit of living in a luxury apartment. These people are the security staff of the apartment. If you don't leave, I'll have no choice but to call the police. As the doorbell rang and the security staff inquired about the situation, the in-laws started to panic. They must have realized that my warning was not a bluff. Even though the security staff had arrived, the in-laws desperately tried to talk things over. I decided to listen to what they had to say. I wanted to know what Ryan had been telling his family. He portrayed me as a pitiable woman with no relatives, claiming that without him, I couldn't sustain myself and that it was okay to treat me like a housemaid. This testimony from the in-laws was valuable, so I decided to be lenient. In fact, when giving money to the in-laws, I had them sign a document stating the amount I gave them. To put it simply, it was a promissory note. Ryan told me I need proof that I've given you the money. Otherwise, I will be scolded. If you sign, I'll give you as much money as you need. Presented with this condition and realizing they could get money, the in-laws readily signed. Thankfully, I secured evidence of the loan amounts. Originally, I planned to get the money repaid from the in-laws, but realizing it would be difficult, I decided to make Ryan responsible and urge him to leave the apartment. You're safe for now. If you leave immediately, I'll forget about the money. But if you step foot here ever again, I'll demand the full amount of the borrowed money. As I waved the promissory note, the in-laws finally gave up and left. I'm Tiffany's husband. I have the right to live here. I won't leave. Ryan insisted on staying and refused to leave. Then, let's talk this over right here right now. Alright, let's talk. If you do anything strange though, I'll call security immediately. After expressing my gratitude to the security staff, I dismissed them for now. Why are you doing this? Do you hate my family that much? Of course. Appearing suddenly and treating me like a slave, I firmly countered Ryan. Alright, if you hate it so much, I'll ask my mother and the rest of the family to leave. But I should stay here, right? I was just appalled by his words. He was planning to abandon his family just to secure his own residence. Such a low life. No, you need to leave this place too. Why? We're husband and wife. No. I presented Ryan with a folder. What is this? Ryan's face went pale as he looked through the folder. Quite a young one, isn't she? Apparently, you've been spending several days a week together. The folder contained evidence of Ryan's infidelity. There were numerous photos of them walking intimately and entering a hotel together. Ryan had been having an affair with that woman shortly after our marriage. You planned to proceed with our divorce and move to your previous apartment, correct? That's a lie. Who told you that? I activated the voice recorder I had in hand. His lover's voice filled the room, and Ryan froze. It was evidence obtained by a private investigator. The investigator had contacted the other party, informed her that Ryan was married, and recorded her reaction. The woman boasted about how, once I was out of the way, she would live in Ryan's apartment with him. She believed Ryan was in the midst of divorce proceedings and that I was the obstacle because I wouldn't agree to the divorce. That left Ryan exhausted from dealing with his family and ultimately resulting in me leaving the house voluntarily. The woman was convinced she was Ryan's only true love and that his relationship with me was completely over. She laughed, saying, "True love will eventually win." But as soon as she realized she was speaking to an investigator, she started to defend herself. She felt deceived by Ryan, thinking their relationship was over. She was willing to reveal everything in exchange for not pursuing damages against her. When asked by the investigator what I would do based on her information, I said, "It depends on what you tell me," and she ended up disclosing everything, even information not requested. All of it was recorded on the voice recorder. True love turned out to be quite fragile. I've got solid evidence. This could lead to a substantial settlement. Ryan collapsed to the floor, drained of strength. I've sent your belongings to her apartment, so you can live there from now on. Please leave now. I contacted the concierge again and had Ryan, who had lost all his strength, removed from the room. As promised, I decided not to pursue damages against the lover. Ryan's dishonest actions became clear through the testimony provided. As a result, I was able to secure a substantial settlement from him. The amount was more than enough to take forgiveness into account. In return, I informed his and her parents and their workplace about his actions. Since there was no promise to keep the information secret, sharing it was not a problem. She was Ryan's subordinate, and they had grown close while working together. It might have been a touching story had he not been married. After informing the company, they admitted to their lack of management and apologized. To protect their image, the company had her resign, while Ryan was demoted and transferred to another subsidiary. The two had engaged in personal conduct during work hours, causing damage to the company. Such actions required appropriate measures. Rumor has it that the family is now living together in her apartment. They claimed it's your fault that we are in this situation. Take responsibility. So they reside in that apartment together. Ryan took out a loan to pay me the alimony. He is now struggling to manage his finances and repay the debt. I anticipate that he'll soon be forced to ask his family to leave due to financial difficulties. Ryan thought of me as being pitiful caring for my grandparents in a facility. But the reality was slightly different. My grandparents are indeed in a facility, but it's a high-end one for a comfortable lifestyle. They once ran a business and planned to pass it on to my young parents. But after their early demise, they decided to retire, handing over the business to a trusted individual. I've always loved painting since my student days, winning many awards. When I expressed my desire to work in art, my grandparents decided against passing their company to me, choosing to live in a luxury facility by their choice. I pursued a career related to art and am now recognized as a children's book author. My books have been successful, gaining me a certain level of fame. Since parting ways with Ryan, my fortunes seem to have turned for the better. He must be regretting now, knowing the truth. I used the profit from selling the apartment, my parents' inheritance, and royalties from my work to purchase that high-rise apartment. I hope to live with my grandparents again, so I decided to act on that desire. The facility will remain available for them going forward, where they can receive proper support if they ever need it in their daily lives. However, for now, they are both maintaining their health. The success of my books has allowed me to express my gratitude to my grandparents. It looks like we will enjoy a happy life together for a while longer. Despite an unfortunate encounter, that experience has paved the way for a hopeful future ahead.
Has the move been completed yet? The movers will arrive in 3 hours. It's Scott's lover, who is trying to kick Nicole and me out of the house. Mandy stole Scott from me. I used to run a salon from home, and losing this house means I also lose my workplace. She intended to take over my salon. However, things didn't go smoothly, and ultimately, she will face hardships. I never thought such misfortune would befall me, but at the same time, it's the first time I've been supported by so many people. I feel the importance of having good connections with people more than ever. My name is Kelly Johnson, 45 years old. With my husband Scott Johnson, who is 5 years older, and our middle school daughter, Nicole, makes us a family of 3. We have been married for 15 years. Scott and I met at work, and I quit my job when we got married, but Scott continued working. He has now been promoted to the point where he attends board meetings as an executive director. The reason I quit was not to become a housewife, but to start my own business. I once shared my dream of running a salon with Scott when we started dating. That's a wonderful dream. I want to support you with all my heart. Really? I'm so happy. You're the first to say you'll support me, Scott. I had always been told by family and friends that I shouldn't become an entrepreneur, so his support truly meant a lot to me. Scott actually encouraged me to quit my job and go back to school when we got married. It's a chance to study seriously. Really? Tell the truth, I've wanted to go to school for a long time. I wanted to open a massage salon that supports dieting. This required a substantial knowledge of the body. I discovered I was pregnant right after we got married and attended school while pregnant. On days when I felt unwell, I got to take classes online. With Scott's support, I attended school for 2 years, gave birth to Nicole during this period, and successfully opened the salon at home. Those busy 2 years are vivid in my memory, as if it were yesterday. For Nicole's sake, I worked hard to make the salon successful. This effort paid off, and 3 years later, my schedule was filled with repeat customers. A system where regulars who received maintenance would refer new customers had formed. By the 10th year, the salon had become so popular that it was hard to get a reservation. When the 10th anniversary came, customers and friends celebrated with me. That day, I received a bouquet of flowers from Scott and Nicole and felt truly happy. You've really done well. Thank you. I made it this far because of your support. I appreciated his help and expressed my gratitude to Scott for his support. I have something to tell you. What is it? I've been promoted, and I will become an executive director. I'll be attending board meetings from now on, and it might get busier. That's wonderful. Congratulations. Thank you. At that time, I was confident that our life together would continue to be happy even after Nicole had grown up and left home. However, a few years later, I would discover Scott's betrayal. One day, Mandy Simpson appeared at the salon without notice. She is the daughter of the president of Scott's company. Are you Mrs. Johnson? Yes, that's me. Do you have a reservation? No. I heard about this place from Scotty. Scotty, I am Mandy Simpson. Simpson as in. Mandy looked at me with a smile. No doubt, she was the young lady of the Simpson group. When Scott and I worked at the same company, the president used to bring his elementary school daughter to the office. After graduating from university, Mandy joined the secretarial department through her parents' connections. You're the president's daughter, and yes, I came here today to enjoy some beauty treatments. Really? I'm sorry, but we're fully booked today, and the next availability is in 3 months. I'm really sorry. Upon hearing this, Mandy's expression suddenly darkened. I had a bad feeling, and my heart started pounding. You're turning away a customer who made the effort to come here. I'm sorry. I'm managing this salon alone, so I can only handle one customer at a time. Then you should cancel the current reservation and let me in. That's difficult. It would be rude to the customers who have made reservations. Mandy refused to leave. The next customer was due to arrive soon. I didn't want such a scene to be witnessed at the entrance. I'm sorry you came all the way over, but could you first make a reservation? I also take cancellations if you can't make it by chance. Then Mandy glared at me angrily and said, I won't make a reservation. Who do you think would come to such a dirty salon and left, catching a taxi? I was simply shocked and could only stand there stunned. Compared to a salon that a lady would visit, it might indeed look inferior. But I didn't deserve to be spoken to like that and felt a bit down. However, the events of that day were not over yet. That night, Scott came home with a furious expression. Hey, I heard you turned away the president's daughter today. What? The news has reached you already. I'm the one who referred her, so of course it would. But you should have made it clear that reservations are mandatory. She's the president's daughter, you know. So what? Being the president's daughter doesn't entitle her to special treatment. I couldn't understand why Scott was so angry. Maybe he was concerned about his career. Mandy isn't involved with the company, and the president doesn't seem that strict. Why are you so upset? And something else I'm curious about. Why does she call you by your nickname? That fact bugged me, so I asked. Scott then showed a clear sign of being disturbed. She was at the president's golf tournament. The president calls me by my nickname, so she probably does too. The fact that the president calls Scott by his nickname seemed strange to me, but I still didn't understand why he was angry. Is your promotion that important? Don't you support me? I always supported you. Having the young lady as a client could have boosted your reputation. This salon prioritizes reservations. New customers are important, but regulars are even more so. Hanf. As if a customer who comes once a month would spend much money. At these words, I was at a loss for words. I didn't have the energy to argue further, and I asked Scott to consult me in advance if he intended to make any referrals. I won't make any referrals anymore. Scott was angry, and we didn't speak to each other at home for a while. I couldn't understand why the matter with the president's daughter had to cause so much trouble. We only started talking again when Scott forgot something. A USB was left plugged into the home computer. When I called, he asked me to bring it to the office. I had several appointments that afternoon, so I hurried to the office. My bad. Scott said that, took the USB, and quickly left. I might have hoped for a lunch together, But nothing of the sort happened, and we parted ways quickly. Is that you, Mrs. Johnson? The person who greeted me was a junior colleague who had joined the company when I was still working there. She had become a respectable career woman, which surprised me. Ms. Adams? It's been a while. You seem well settled. Well, I'm a senior now. Time really flies, I thought. I wanted to chat more, but with customers waiting, I said, how about we grab a meal sometime? Here's my contact, and handed her my business card. Thank you. There's something I'd like to discuss, actually. Something you'd like to discuss. Yes, it's a bit difficult to talk about here. She then whispered in my ear. It's about Director Johnson. What? I was concerned about my husband, but we agreed to get in touch later. I felt uneasy. What on earth could it be about? However, a few days later, I witnessed an unbelievable scene. That day, I had gone on a business trip a bit further away. I was visiting a factory to see a prototype of a new lotion for the salon. When I arrived at the station, I saw a familiar car parked. Watching it, I noticed Mandy sitting in the passenger seat. I discreetly observed from a distance. No one was in the driver's seat at first, but soon a man came out of a store and took the seat. It was undoubtedly Scott. He was supposed to be on a one-night golf trip today. I thought maybe it was a competition Mandy was participating in, but something felt off. It was a woman's intuition. Then, in the next moment, Mandy wrapped her arms around Scott's neck and kissed him on the cheek. Scott happily returned the kiss on her lips. They laughed shyly and drove away from the station. I was so shocked that I just collapsed right there. The next day, late at night, Scott came home. Oh, you're still up. You could have gone to bed. We need to talk. About what? Who did you go on a trip with last night? It wasn't golf, was it? Scott seemed a bit taken aback by the sudden question. Yesterday, I saw you at the station. You were kissing Mandy in the car. Hearing this, Scott sighed heavily. Yes, I went on a trip with Mandy. Surprisingly, Scott calmly admitted to the affair, and even more astonishing, said, now that it's out, it's easier to talk. I actually plan to wait until next year, but I'm not interested in you at all anymore. I want to marry Mandy soon. Even my mother agrees. I never expected that my mother-in-law had been consulted in advance. For the first time, I realized she was on her son's side. Are you considering a divorce? Yes. I'd be happier coming home to a young wife rather than an older woman like you. Seeing the kiss was shocking enough, but I never expected such a statement. Let's discuss this with Mandy as well. I managed to say this while desperately trying to maintain my composure. Over the weekend, we invited Mandy over and had a talk. We haven't told Nicole about the situation yet. She might notice that something is off, but being a middle school student, she seems to be considerate and hasn't said anything. We asked Nicole to go out, and the three of us gathered. Scott and Mandy, sitting in front of me, were holding hands. There was no sign of remorse from them. To them, I was just an obstacle now. When did this relationship start? About a year ago, I guess. That long. I hadn't noticed anything over this past year. I remember that Scott got promoted a year ago. When I realized that the late returns home and the weekend outings were all to meet Mandy, anger welled up inside me. After the divorce, I will be taking over the house and the salon. Wait a minute. Even if I leave the house, why should you take the salon too? Well, the salon is attached to the house, isn't it? Are you planning to continue coming here? That's right. But I hadn't thought about not being able to provide services to the local clients anymore. If I leave this house, I have to give up the salon as well. I was so shocked by Scott's affair that I completely forgot about the salon. Even if I have no other choice but to leave, it will be impossible for you to run the salon. I will shut it down. Don't worry, my father will provide financial support, and I will hire staff. I never imagined losing not only Scott but the salon as well. That hurt even more. I want you to sign the divorce papers quickly and leave. I can't wait to live here with Scotty. Yes, I see. But it won't be that simple. Is it a matter of money? I will pay proper compensation. I have the money. That's your parents' money, isn't it? And do you really think your father approves of this? My dad supports everything I do. And with Scotty by my side, there's no problem. Even his mother supports us. I no longer had the energy to delay the divorce. If Scott's decision is this firm, there's no point in clinging to anything. Since I would receive compensation, I decided to proceed with the divorce proceedings quickly and settle everything. However, I was worried about Nicole. Just then, the door burst open, and Nicole entered the room. Mom, let's leave these people and get out of here. I support you. Oh, Nicole, not staying with your wonderful father? That's fortunate. I didn't want you to be in my way anyways. Nicole stared intently at Mandy. What do you like about this old man, old lady? Old lady? Ma-am? I'm only 23 years old. Oh, is that so? I thought you were older because of the heavy makeup. Mandy trembled with anger. What kind of upbringing is this? I'm sorry. My daughter is just very honest. Mandy left the room trembling with anger, and Scott hurriedly followed her. I apologized to Nicole. Nicole, I'm really sorry. It's not your fault, Mom, and you can open a salon anywhere because of your skills. Encouraged by Nicole's words, I resolved to try hard in a new place. I might not have been able to make such a quick decision if it weren't for Nicole. I didn't want her to have anything to do with that woman. The procedures were carried out swiftly. All matters regarding compensation and child support were arranged through a lawyer. I honestly told my salon clients that I was divorcing and leaving the salon. There were words of encouragement from them, as well as reactions of disappointment and anger. It felt like everything I had built was gradually crumbling. Then the moving day came, and Mandy showed up. Has the move been completed yet? The movers will arrive in 3 hours. That will take some time. There's no need for you to keep watch. While Nicole and I were packing, Mandy wandered around the salon and spent time intimately with Scott. I tried not to let it bother me. When the movers arrived, we successfully moved all our belongings. Well, this is goodbye from us. Bye-bye. Mandy, arm in arm with Scott, waved at us. I handed her a thick file containing legal documents for the salon. This is important documentation for running the salon, so make sure to read it carefully. I understand. Thus began a new life for Nicole and me alone. Using our savings, we bought a used house and set up part of it as a new salon. I was surprised at how many bookings we received after announcing the opening date. Despite the increased distance, many of my regular customers came to visit. Additionally, acquaintances living near the new store spread good word about the salon, and Nicole actively promoted it on social media. Tears spilled over as I realized how many people were supporting me. A month later, the salon was running smoothly. During that time, I received numerous frantic calls from my husband and his lover on my cell phone, which I continued to ignore. However, they even started calling the salon. Hearing Mandy's voice was exasperating. "Hey you've exposed us, haven't you? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Scott and my father are in trouble right now." It seemed there was trouble at the company. I didn't need to know the details, but just to be sure, I contacted Ms. Adams. "I would like to discuss something important with you. Are you available tonight?" After work, I agreed to meet her. After your divorce, these photos were distributed among the people in the industry. The photos she presented showed Scott and Mandy having a secret meeting inside the company. What is this? Do you remember when I said I had something to discuss with you? This is it. Since it was right after your divorce, I thought it was no longer necessary. But hearing Mandy bragging about how she ousted you made me lose my patience. Scott and Mandy's affair was already widely known within the company. The president, indulgent towards his daughter, did nothing about her actions. So, I decided to leak this fact to the public. As a result, Ms. Adams and several other employees took photos of Scott and Mandy's secret meetings. Scott and Mandy were careless and were easily photographed. But why you? Because you helped me a lot when I was a new graduate. I felt like crying. Also, I was angry at Mandy, who did whatever she wanted after joining through connections, and at Mr. Johnson and the president for overlooking it. Currently, a corporate affair scandal could be a fatal blow. The public's view of infidelity is harsh, and clients tend to distance themselves quickly. But won't you and your colleagues be troubled if the company faces problems? Don't worry. Our company was set to be acquired by a foreign corporation several years ago, and it's possible to request a transfer to the parent company. It seems that the acquisition of the company had already been decided. This issue has devalued the company, and the sale at a very low price is underway. The president only now got furious about the affair. Scott was urged to take responsibility. However, expectations were low that Scott would take any meaningful action, and he eventually declared he would resign to take responsibility and left the company. Afterward, there was constant strife between the unemployed Scott and Mandy. Mandy tried to return to her parents' home, but her mother refused and actually opposed her marriage, saying, "Don't ever come back once you leave." With nowhere to go and her father busy with company issues, Mandy was largely ignored. Eventually, with no means to live on her own, Mandy became dependent on Scott. Then, another problem occurred. The salon was sued. This was because a customer developed skin problems due to the lotion used. Bad rumors spread quickly, and customers left in no time. Mandy, who was not involved in customer service, decided to blame the employees for the problems that occurred. Angry employees left as a result, and new problems arose. Mandy did not have a massage qualification, and the salon had been viable thanks to the employees. She had never looked through the important documents I handed over when I left the house. However, bookings from customers continued to come in. Unaware customers thought I was still running the salon and visited. As a result, many complaints were lodged with the Consumer Consultation Center, and eventually, an audit was conducted on the salon. The salon, which had not followed any operational rules, was forced to close down, and it was unable to refund prepaid vouchers. Mandy's spending was terrible. Having nowhere to go, Mandy visited my salon. "Please help me. I have no one else to turn to." "Why are you asking me for help? Because there's no one else." At that moment, customers resting in the waiting room stood up and confronted Mandy. "You have the nerve to show your face here. Just go back where you came from." One by one, the women who were regulars at my salon and had come from far condemned Mandy. Unable to bear it, Mandy fled back home. The salon she managed soon went bankrupt. What remained were the refunds to customers and unpaid wages to employees. As a result, Mandy took out loans to settle these debts. Her parents refused to assist her, and she was forced to borrow from financial institutions. Meanwhile, Scott still had not found a job and, due to his pride as a former director, was picky about employment. You should work, even if it's just at a store or something, to make some money. What? There's no way I would do such work. You should work instead. Such arguments continued to be a regular occurrence. Eventually, unable to withstand the pressure of repayment, Mandy started working as a cashier in a supermarket, and Scott began working as a delivery person. But it was still difficult to repay the debts. Mandy eventually went to her parents' house to beg for help. She promised to repay and created a promissory note. A few days later, Nicole suddenly burst into the house as if fleeing. "What's wrong?" "He's chasing me." "Who?" At that moment, Scott appeared, wearing a delivery service uniform. "What are you doing?" Suddenly, he started apologizing at the entrance. "I sent Nicole to her room and decided to talk with Scott alone. Kelly, I was wrong. I want to start over with the three of us as a family. I'm serious. After you left me and Nicole for another woman, why do you think we can start over? I intend to divorce her." "What? It hasn't even been a year since you got married, right?" At that moment, the doorbell rang, and Nicole came downstairs to answer it. "You're here too." The person who boldly walked into the house was Mandy. "I knew you'd be here." "How did you know?" "The delivery service called me. They said they couldn't reach you. What are you doing, skipping work?" "I want to break up with you." "What are you saying?" Seeing the situation worsening, I urged them to leave the house. "I'm not considering remarrying you. We don't want to be involved with you anymore. So please, never come to this house again." "Wait. If either of you comes here again, I'll report you to the police for stalking. I will never come to this house again." Saying that, Mandy took Scott and left. In the end, Mandy was not considering divorcing Scott, and she did not let go of him. I wondered why Mandy so desperately wanted to stay with Scott. 5 years have passed. One day, when I was feeling unwell from a cold and went to the hospital, I saw a nurse pushing a patient in a wheelchair. The patient was a man in pajamas, unmistakably Scott. I was curious about what had happened, but went home without doing anything that day. When I told Nicole about the incident, she said, "I'll look into it." Nicole still had friends nearby our old address who she could contact for information. From her investigation, it was revealed that Scott had a traffic accident while making deliveries and broke his leg. He had been hospitalized with injuries that would take 3 months to heal fully. Meanwhile, Mandy had left Scott during his hospitalization, leaving behind a divorce notice. She had only been holding on to Scott to ensure the repayment of their debts, and once she realized the medical expenses would be an additional burden, she abandoned him. Scott, now free, promptly signed the divorce papers left by Mandy. However, he was later fired from his part-time job, and his solitary hospitalization worsened his mental state, leading to a depression-like condition. Additionally, the reason Mandy abandoned Scott was that she had a new boyfriend. However, her new boyfriend was severely addicted to gambling and had been misusing Mandy's funds. As a result, Mandy was trying to escape from him. With nowhere else to go, Mandy reluctantly continued living with him. She was also mentally exhausted, and her situation was far from good. Neighbors noticed her severe weight loss and gossiped. That wife has lost a lot of weight recently. Nicole was fed up with hearing about them and told me, "Don't worry about those people anymore." To Nicole, that man was just someone related by blood, not someone she could think of as her father. After graduating from high school, Nicole attended a beauty school for 2 years to become a nail technician, and after graduating, she has been helping at my salon. She has talked about wanting her own salon in the future, and I allowed her to set up a nail space in my shop, which she has made a reality. Though the divorce put many hardships on Nicole, seeing her work hard and stay positive motivates me to do better myself. Recently, Nicole said something that really touched me. "I want to become an independent adult like you." This was truly a joy to hear, the most valuable thing to me. I feel very happy now. Life cannot be measured by money alone. While there are many wealthy people, there are not as many who are rich in spirit. I want to be a person rich in spirit. That's why I cherish my relationships with those around me and live with a sense of gratitude. As Nicole grows, I too want to continue growing.